Welcome back, viewers. You're watching The Savera and I'm Vidhi Joshi. In a significant development in US foreign policy, President Donald Trump has thrown his support behind a proposed Senate bill that could impose massive 500% tariffs on nations such as China and India that continue to trade in Russian oil and energy products. The move is seen as a major escalation in Washington's efforts to isolate Moscow economically over its ongoing invasion of Ukraine, which began in early 2022. The bill, spearheaded by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, has already gained considerable traction in Congress with 84 co-sponsors signed on. In an interview, Graham revealed that Trump encouraged him to bring the legislation forward for a vote after the July congressional break, calling the former president's endorsement a big breakthrough. According to Graham, the legislation is designed not only to deal a severe economic blow to Russia's wartime economy, but also to give Trump a powerful diplomatic tool to pressure Russian President Vladimir Putin to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. Graham explained that the bill would target countries that continue to buy Russian oil and are not actively supporting Ukraine. Under the proposed legislation, any such nation could face a 500% tariff on their goods exported to the United States. He cited India and China as key enablers of Putin's war machine, pointing out that together they account for approximately 70% of Russia's oil exports. India and China keep his war machine going, Graham said, stressing that the bill is aimed at cutting off this critical revenue stream. India, which was the second largest buyer of Russian fossil fuels in May 2025, purchased an estimated 4.2 billion euros worth of Russian energy products that month alone, with crude oil accounting for nearly three-quarters of the total. Since the onset of the Ukraine conflict, India has dramatically increased its imports of discounted Russian oil, rising from under 1% of total imports to between 40% and 44%. India further ramped up these purchases, importing more crude oil from Russian than it did from traditional Middle Eastern suppliers like Saudi Arabia and Iraq. If enacted, the bill would deliver a sharp economic jolt to India and other nations continuing this trade, potentially subjecting their exports to the United States of America to punitive tariffs. Indian refiners were expected to import up to 2.2 million barrels per day of Russian crude oil in June, marking the highest level in 2 years. Given India's heavy reliance on US markets for goods and services, a 500% tariff could have sweeping implications for bilateral trade. However, India is currently in negotiations with the US over a potential trade deal which could ease tariffs and expand economic cooperation, though that process might be complicated by this proposed legislation. While the bill includes a presidential waiver allowing the US president to decide whether or not to implement these sanctions once passed, Trump's current stance suggests he is inclined to use the measure as leverage. Graham confirmed that Trump had reviewed the bill and expressed readiness to proceed, noting that the former president appreciated having such a tool at his disposal. There is a waiver in the bill, Mr. President. You are in charge whether or not it's to be implemented, Graham said, recounting a recent conversation with Donald Trump. Despite Trump's endorsement, the bill's path has not been entirely smooth. Earlier attempts to bring it forward were reportedly stalled due to White House concerns about expanding sanctions and the broader impact on the US relations with nations like India and key European allies. The Trump administration was even said to have pushed for changes in the bill's language, advocating for terms like shall to be replaced with may to reduce the mandatory nature of the penalties. In response, Graham offered a compromise by including carve-outs for nations that are aiding Ukraine, a move aimed at preventing friction like NATO allies and avoiding an economic rift with the European Union. In Russia, the proposed legislation has not gone unnoticed. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov dismissed the bill and its chief proponent, saying the senator's views are well known to us. They are well known to us. They are well known to the whole world. He belongs to a group of inveterate Russophobes. If it were up to him, these sanctions would have been imposed long ago. Peskov questioned whether such measures would help resolve the conflict in Ukraine and urged those promoting them to consider these consequences. The legislation initially proposed in March is expected to be formally introduced in August. If passed, it would represent a major shift in US economic strategy, combining traditional sanctions with aggressive tariff policies designed to deter third-party support for Russia. While President Donald Trump retains final discretion over the bill's implementation, his recent comments suggest a readiness to wield the legislation as a central part of his diplomatic arsenal should it be returned to the White House.
Sanctions
Yes.
on Russia. Have you gotten Trump on board
Big
with
breakthrough here. So what does this bill do? If you're buying products from Russia and you're not helping Ukraine, then there's a 500% tariff on your products coming to the United States. India and China buy 70% of Putin's oil. They keep his war machine going. My bill has 84 co-sponsors. It would allow the president to put tariffs on China and India and other countries to get them, stop them from supporting Putin's war machine to get him to the table. For the first time yesterday, the president told me.
You were playing golf with him.
Yeah, I was playing golf with him. He says, it's time to move your bill. There's a waiver in the bill, Mr. President. You're in charge of whether or not it's to be implemented. But we're going to give President Trump a tool in the toolbox he doesn't have today. After the July break, we're going to pass a bill that would allow the
president.
He's
going to sign it.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape. But he has a waiver. It's up to him how to impose it.
That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.